So over the weekend when I was streaming, one of the major questions that I was seeing was around face of the franchise and, you know, what cards you go with, what cards a W, what cards an L. So I want to go through every single division and all the cards that are in face of the franchise and break down, you know, in each division, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, who are guys that are kind of slept on, give you a pretty good analysis, whether you're just jumping into the game for release on Monday night or you've been playing over the weekend, because these cards are very difficult to get. I'm almost at the first pack, and I've been playing all weekend, so it takes a lot to get to this point. So let's give you an introduction on what the good cards are, the bad cards are, the slept on cards, and all that in today's video. So we begin our matters in the AL West, and with face of the franchise, how this works is you go through the program, one card's a non-sell, and then later on you get to choose your sellable cards. So one of the things with this is that, you know, one of your cards, you're just kind of gonna be given something, and I know the community's not really happy about that. Maybe that changes in the future, but for right now, if you get a card, are you excited about it? Should you be frustrated about it? Let's go through my top 5 of the AL West. Coming in at number 5 is actually one of my favorite cards of this entire drop, which again speaks to how great this drop is, and it's Mitch Haniger. He's a phenomenal bat. He's got decent fielding, decent speed, but if you look at the rest of the package of the AL West, I feel like you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck out of every other card besides Haniger. But again, I'm telling you, he's one of my favorite cards in this entire program. So if you think I'm dogging on Haniger, I'm not. It's just that this division is stacked. Coming in at number 4 is actually Mike Trout. Now, again, people are like, why would I put Trout 4? Defense is lacking. Power's a little bit iffy. It's still really good power, and I get it. Mike Trout's a super fun card, and if you don't usually get Mike Trout, go crazy and be excited about getting Trout. But if you had a selection of the AL West, I feel like there's a couple of the cards you'd rather go with. Coming in at number 3 is actually Sean Murphy, and this is one of those guys where people are like, it's not a very sexy name. Why would I want to go after Sean Murphy? His power is nuts. He's got a pretty decent swing, and going right off the rip with diamond defense and an arm talent and reaction talent like that, you'll be gunning runners out, and believe me, that reaction plays a big role. The contact's a little bit frustrating, but for your purposes, when you first jump into ranked seasons, it'll take a long time to get up to Hall of Fame. So I feel like there's a lot of value in a guy with low contact and high power at the start of the game. He'll do a lot of good things for you. Coming in at number 2 is Corey Seager. I don't really need to say anything about the bat. You can see the stats literally for yourself. He has one of the best swings in the game, but for real, man, he's literally got to just be your second baseman. He's a significant liability at shortstop and especially at third. That arm talent just won't cut it. If you're gonna get Seager, you got to play him at 2, but if you had one pick, which you will later on in that choice pack, your pick should be Kyle Tucker. He's the most well-rounded card of this division. He's got phenomenal hitting stats, a phenomenal swing, gold defense everywhere in the outfield. Parallel 2, he has diamond in right field. He's got a decent arm. He's got decent speed. It's just a well-rounded card. It should be your number 1 selection of the AL West later on when you get that choice pack. Now, going into the NL West at number 5, CJ Cron, kind of the same deal of what I'm talking about with Mitch Haniger. He's a phenomenal bat. That's it. If we had the DH in this game, I would love CJ Cron, but we don't have the DH in Diamond Dynasty. So for now, he's a really good bat. You can put him at first base. There are a lot of cards at first base right now that I like. I'm gonna have a full tier list coming out soon, but for now, CJ Cron's number 5. Coming in at number 4 is the Crone Zone. I love Jake Cronenworth so much. His swing is one of my favorites in the game, but if I'm being completely honest, the power is pretty lacking in this card. Having gold defense at second is nice, but again, the arm talent's an issue. He's got good speed. I'm putting him over Crone purely based on the fact that he can play everywhere in the infield, so he helps you out in that regard. But Cronenworth just really lacks in a lot of stats, so that's why he's at number 4. At number 3, kind of surprising, I have Cody Bellinger. So it feels like right now there's a lot of left-handed pitchers that are being used. Now, you could also argue there's a lot of righties, but From my play online over the weekend, I've seen a little bit more lefties than righties. So with that in mind, I'd say Bellinger's a little bit further down the totem pole because of that. He does have goal defense in left and right field, but he lost center field on his positions to play on this card. So if he had center field, I would say for sure, maybe even number one. But because he's only a corner outfield guy and a first base guy, I feel like especially at first base, you have a little bit better guys you can use. A well-rounded card, but Bellinger drops in at number 3. At number 2 is Carson Kelly. If you can tell, there's a little bit of trend. I'm favoring catchers. I think Carson Kelly's again got a really good swing, and I think he's a little bit better than Sean Murphy because of just how he annihilates left-handed pitching. He's got that 97 contact, 102 power. There's a lot of left-handed starters in the game right now that people like to use and left-handed relievers. He's got gold defense at catcher. He's got decent stats that'll get to the point where you could have gold defense at third as well. Speed, not a big issue at catcher or third base either. So I really like Carson Kelly and I have him at number 2 in the division. But at number 1, I have Logan Webb. And Logan Webb, for those who did not play in 21, had a really good starting pitcher card from the playoff program. He is a face of the franchise 90 overall card here, 5-pitch mix, and he's got all the flavor, man. Sinker, slider, changeup, four seam, and a cutter. Decent per nines, decent stamina. But if you look at the control and the break, I mean, it's just second to none. Logan Webb is clearly the number 1 card in this division. And if you had one pick, the guy you should be going for. Now jumping into the AL East at number 5, I have Wander Franco. And here's the thing on Wander, man. I love his swing. I love everything about Wander Franco. It's just the power is just not enough there. He has gold defense everywhere in the infield that he plays, decent speed, he's a switch hitter, all of the great things you love about Wander Franco. It's just, I feel like there's another shortstop that's coming up later that I like a lot more, so he comes in at number 5 in this division. At number 4, I have ALEK MANOAH, and it's not a bad card on paper. It's just that I feel like I like a couple of the guys in this division a little bit more, but ALEK MANOAH's not a bad starter. I did rough him up a little bit in the one game I faced him, but ALEK MANOAH comes in at number 4 in the AL East purely because he's not a 5-pitch guy. He does a decent per nines, but a decent starter again if you do pick him up in that non-sellable pack. Coming in at number 3, I have Rafael Devers, and I talked about it earlier, how it feels like there's a little bit more left-handed pitching right now, and the guy coming up next is a big part of that late-game bullpen meta, and Devers' power lacks a little bit there. The general population of players lack against left-handed pitching, and the defense, it leaves a little bit to be desired with Rafi Devers as well. I've seen a little bit more errors early on in the game with low defensive guys than I'm used to, so for that reason, Devers is number 3. Coming in at number 2, the guy that I roughed up in the tech test and now I can't seem to hit once again, Aroldis Chapman. The downsides to this card is not have outlier. He only has 4 pitches and none of them involve a sinker or a cutter. So with all that in mind, Chapman's still Chapman. He's still a left-handed reliever, leverage reliever late in the game, great per nines, but the pitches leave a little bit to be desired. So with that, I have him coming in at number 2. And if you could have your pick of the litter of the AL East, which you can later on in the program, my number 1 selection here is Cedric Mullins. I personally would hide him in left field. That arm is terrifying in center field, but everything else about this card is fantastic. You put an 80 fielding left fielder with mid-80s speed with a couple parallels, phenomenal hitting stats, and a phenomenal swing. Mullins is one of my favorite cards this whole program, and he comes in at number 1 in the AL East. Going over to the NL East and an incredibly powerful division at number 5, we got JT Realmuto. We have a lot of catchers in the game coming in at launch, and this guy's got arguably the worst hitting stats of like the big diamonds that have come out. You could maybe even argue that 88 Piazza might be better than just JT Realmuto. Speed and defense are great, but out of a catcher, I need a little bit more power than what we're getting out of Realmuto, so he comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is a little bit of a surprise for some people, but I have Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, he's got phenomenal power. The defense is a little bit suspect, but he's got a phenomenal arm, and I really got to tell you guys something. This division specifically, I feel like outside of Realmuto, you're making a good pick wherever you make a selection. I'm not dogging on Acuna. I think he's actually a phenomenal card, but it just speaks to how loaded this division is, so I have him coming in at number 4. At number 3, I have one of the most exciting players in this whole content drop. We have Jazz Chisholm. He's got phenomenal speed, phenomenal fielding, phenomenal batting. But again, this is just such a stacked division that a couple other players coming up here have a couple things going for him that Jazz doesn't. But he's a second baseman with power. He can play short and third with gold defense as well. Again, if I'm making a full tier list, I mean, he's near the top, but this is a loaded division. So he comes in at number 3. At number 2 might be the number 1 first baseman in the game. You should not play Josh Bell in left or right, but man, if you play him at first, you'll be doing okay. A switch hitter with basically 90 power both sides, basically 80 contact both sides, and a great swing. Josh Bell's nuts, man. This card is, I can't wait to get him. And he comes in again in a very loaded division at number 2. Coming in number 1 in the NL East, there's really no discussion to me. Lindor, unbelievable swing. He can play everywhere in the infield with diamond defense, but primarily at short, he can play there with diamond defense as well. The arm, a little bit frustrating, but man, I just, that arm feels deceptive because when I've used him online, he's gunning people out. So I feel like it's a little bit incorrect with the 68 arm talent there. I obviously am a little bit biased because I love Francisco Lindor, but I mean, this is a really close to a 5-tool player to 90 overall, and he's my number 1 player in the NL East. Now it's time for the AL Central and the number 5 card of this division, and arguably the worst card in this entire drop, which again speaks to how great this drop is. Andrew Benintendi. Onto the surface, an 80 contact, decent power, you know, it's not bad, but the defensive ratings aren't great, the speed's not great, and I've talked about so many other outfielders that I love more than Benintendi, and there's a couple in this division specifically that are wild. So Benintendi comes in at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is Emmanuel Clase A. I know some people might be like, why in the world am I ranking Clase A this low? I really don't like Clase A in this game, especially with a 3-pitch mix, a cutter, slider, and a 4-seam fastball. There's really no discrepancy in the velocity between those 3. I believe he has outlier, and he does, but you know, specifically talking about Clase A, it's just, you're sitting on something breaking or a fastball. There's no sinker, there's no changeup. You add those pitches, this is a phenomenal card, but you only have lateral movement or a 4-seam fastball. I have crushed him online, and I don't think he's very good, so he comes in at number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Luis Robert, and this card is awesome, man. I mean, this speaks to how loaded this division is too, but Luis Robert, pretty decent power, pretty decent contact. I really prefer guys to be mashing versus the opposite, well, not the opposite hand. I prefer guys to be mashing versus the same hand and have lower stats versus opposite. Like if there's 106.97 on the righty contact and righty power, he'd be my number 1 card in the division because it's easier to hit the opposite hand, so you don't really need those stats there. You can square it up a little bit easier, at least that's how I feel about it. But again, a well-rounded 5-tool type center fielder, can play everywhere in the outfield with gold defense, and he comes in at number 3 on the AL Central. Coming in at number 2 is Casey Mize, and my caveat with Casey Mize, first of all, I'm really excited to use him. We very rarely get like high overall Casey Mize cards. We haven't had one since MLB 20. And we're probably gonna get a lot this year because he's in the Tigers rotation and he should be a staple in it throughout the year. But splitters are very hard to throw, and there's no slurve or anything combined with that as well. So Casey Mize is a starter that you need. Like right now, there's not a lot of great starters in the game, so Casey Mize makes a lot of sense to pick up. But he comes in at number 2. You should still be excited about him, but the number 1 guy is coming up here in a sec. Now I know what you're thinking. I'm a Twins fan. Of course, I'm going to rank Buxton number 1. But let me tell you something about Buxton. You put diamond defense, 99 speed, and comparable power. This is similar argument to Sean Murphy earlier, that you don't really need to look at contact on launch because you're playing at a low difficulty, getting up slowly to Hall of Fame. But the power plays and everything about Buxton is awesome. You'll be seeing a couple of YouTube videos here soon. I've done pretty decent with them, only a couple at bats. I used the live series diamond as well, but Buxton is awesome. I've really loved this card early on. I feel like he generates a lot of exit velo, and he's my number 1 pick to get in the AL Central. And just as fast as we started, we're finally on the final division of the video, the NL Central, and coming in at number 5, I have a lot of Reds fans for some reason, I don't know how that happened, that watch my content, but Joey Votto's number 5, and it's just because he's a bench bat, man. Like 68 power versus lefties, not going to play. Josh Bell and a lot of other first basemen that I mentioned. I mean, Ryan Howard, the literal like card you could get from the pre-order pack, in my opinion, is much better than this Joey Votto, and that's sad because I love Joey Votto. I don't really see how this is a 90 overall card. I'm looking at the stats and it doesn't really make sense to me. It's boosted discipline and clutch, which I guess is what it is, but you can do better, and he's number 5. Now, number 4 with a caveat is Tommy Edman, because he can play everywhere with defense and speed. The power's a little bit weird, but I love Tommy Edman. Last year, he lined out a lot for me, so I'm basing a lot of my assumptions on last year Tommy Edman. But again, this is one of those divisions where if I have somebody ranked low, it's not because I don't like them. It's just because this is a loaded division. So a loaded Tommy Edman comes in at number 4. At number 3, I have Marcus Stroman, decent per nines, and a 5-pitch pitcher with sinker, slider, cutter. You hear those 3 words and you're chilling. But I'm trying to take into account the large majority of the community, and splitters are difficult to throw. The velocity really isn't that much of a difference between going all the way down to 86 to up to 93, so that's a little bit of a negative on Stroman as well. Stroman cards are always really fun on paper, and they don't really perform well online. I'm gonna have a gameplay on him soon to really have a fair assumption of how he plays, but for now, Stroman, you know, I'm going to say that I'm going to be ranking him at 3. Still a good starter. You need starters early in the game, but you could do a little bit better than Stroman. Coming in at number 2 is none other than the airbender himself, Devin Williams, and he's got a circle change, that beautiful screwball, that cutter as well. I faced him earlier on stream today, and it felt like you could kind of hit him a little bit. I don't know, like I was mystified by him last year. This year I feel a little bit easier to hit him, and that could just be a factor of, you know, like we're looking at you know, facing guys for multiple years. You get used to them. A large majority of the community maybe hasn't played as much, and they're going to be terrified by Devin Williams. He's still a great reliever. You need to get diamonds in your bullpen as fast as you can, and Williams is not a bad one. He comes in at number 2, but at number 1, and arguably one of my favorite cards of the entire drop, is Bryan Reynolds, a switch hitter with decent power, phenomenal contact. You will be playing him in center field. You won't be playing him anywhere else, so don't think about left field or right field, but he's got decent fielding, decent speed, a very well-rounded card with an absolute laundry list of quirks. I mean, this Bryan Reynolds, if you're looking at quirks specifically and the ones that matter: pressure cooker. When there's runners on base, the size of your PCI will get bigger. If you're playing a night game, your PCI will get bigger. If you're on the road, your PCI will get bigger. If you pinch hit him, your PCI will get bigger. And if you're in a 2-strike count, your PCI will get bigger. If you're behind, your PCI will get bigger. If it's in extra innings, your PCI will get bigger. I mean, are you kidding me? Bryan Reynolds is awesome, man. What a phenomenal card. I can't wait to pick him up for myself, but that rounds out the video on my quick hitting thoughts and ranking all of the program cards for Face of the Franchise. The number 1 guy you should go for in each inning. Comment below. Was I wrong about your favorite player? Was I right about your favorite player? What are some of your favorite cards you've used so far? If you haven't used any, who are you targeting? And thank you for watching another video, and I will catch you in the next one.